Lesson A4 talks about absolute value. The first question, kind of as a review, is what does it mean to evaluate an expression? Another term that represents evaluate would be to solve. So for this particular problem, we have to substitute in 4 for x and 0.5 for y. So this would be 3 times 4 plus negative 24 times 0.5 all over 734. 3 times 4 gives us 12 plus negative 24 times 1/2 is going to be negative 12 over 734, which is 0 over 734, and that would be 0. This first page says that Nate plotted a point that was a distance of 5 units from 0. So his two options would be negative 5, it's a distance of 5 units, or positive 5, which is also a distance of 5 units. The distance of a point from 0 is called its absolute value. Absolute value asks us how far a number is, or numbers, or expression is away from 0. So the absolute value of 8 is really asking us how far away is 8 from 0. It is 8 units away. Negative 8 is also 8 units from 0. 23 is 23 units away from 0. And negative 23 is 23 units away from 0. So absolute value, these two lines mean absolute value, and that is distance from 0. The first question I ask is how many of you have run a mile? I assume almost every single one of you ran the mile last year in gym class. The real question here is whether or not it's possible to run a negative mile. Is there negative distance? These two questions here. Right here is something that's really important. And it says it is not possible for distance to be a negative. Since absolute value is the distance from 0, absolute value is always positive. I'm going to write that down below here. Absolute value always equals a positive. So this is asking us what number is a distance of 6 from 0. So our two options would be 6 or negative 6. And to check, does 6 have a distance away of 6 from 0? Absolutely. And does negative 6 also have a distance of 6? Absolutely. So we know we can substitute it in and check to see that it works. The next one, we could have 11 or negative 11, because 11 is 11 units away from 0, and negative 11 is 11 units away from 0. What number is 0 units away from 0? We only have one solution here, and that would be 0. Now this one is asking us what number has a distance of negative 3 from 0. Units from 0. Well, if we went back a couple pages, you'll remember that we made a little note that said distance cannot be negative. So this one would be no solution. This next one says to evaluate negative x plus the absolute value of x minus 5 when x equals negative 3. A little side note is that absolute value is considered to be a grouping symbol just like parentheses, so you would want to make sure you do that first. So in here, when I substitute in the negative 3, I have a negative 3 plus, instead of the x, I have negative 3 minus 5. So I have to do my parentheses, or in this case, absolute value first. Negative 3 minus 5, which we'll add the opposite, is negative 8. And I'm going to copy down the rest. Opposite of negative 3. So these, a negative and a negative, make positive. So we have 3 plus the absolute value of 8, negative 8, is 8. So we get 11 for our final answer. A level 2 type of question is just going to ask you the basics using fractions, using decimals, trying to stump you. So asking how far from 0. Negative 1/3 is 1/3 units away. 0.83 is 0.83 units away. 0 is 0 units away. Level 2 should be the easy part for you. Level 3, you're going to start plugging in numbers for the variables, and then in this case it says do not evaluate. So just simply plugging it in, which would make this negative 5 plus 9 over negative 3, or the opposite of negative 3. Now we don't have to solve. The next one, the absolute value of 13, it's going to be times negative 13. Remember, when a number's right next to a letter like this, it's meant to be connected by multiplication. And we don't have to solve. It says do not evaluate, aka do not solve. Level 3 says to substitute the given integers for the variables and evaluate. So this time we have to plug in the numbers and then solve. So p is negative 12 minus the absolute value of negative 8. So we have negative 12 minus 8. We'll keep it, change it, flip it. Negative 12 plus negative 8 is going to be negative 20. The next slide, we're going to go ahead and do 41 plus negative 40, the absolute value of that, minus the absolute value of 41 minus negative 40. 41 plus negative 40 is going to give us absolute value of 1 minus, keep it, change it, flip it, the absolute value of 81. And so we have absolute value of 1 is 1 minus absolute value of 81 is 81. We will keep it, change it, flip it, and we get negative 80 for our answer. Alright, here we're given specific values. We're going to go ahead and substitute in. N is 3 times absolute value of p is 4 minus m, which is 2 to the 4th power, absolute value. So we keep the 3 times on the outside, absolute value of 4 minus, now remember, 2 to the 4th power means 2 times 2 times 2 times 2. So we have 3 times the absolute value of 4 minus 2 times 2 is 4, times 2 is 8, times 2 is 16. So I'm going to bring this up here. We have 3 times the absolute value of 4 plus negative 16, which is negative 12. 3 times 12 is going to be 36. Level 4 question, this one's a little bit hard to see, so I'm going to have you redraw in some of these lines. This is the absolute value, and we have the absolute value actually within the absolute value. So we're going to have to do the innermost first after we substitute in our numbers. So we have negative 2 times the absolute value of negative 2 minus the absolute value of 2 minus negative 3 minus negative 3, all divided by negative 2. So, innermost first, we'll start here. Okay, we've got add the opposite, so 2 plus 3 is going to give us 8. So I'm going to copy down the rest. We have negative 2 minus absolute value of 8. And just go ahead and make that a positive 2 right away. So we still have our absolute value. Negative 2 minus absolute value of 8 is 8. We have the absolute value of that, which would be negative 10, positive 10. So we have negative 2 times the absolute, or times 10, divided by 2. Negative 2 times 10 is negative 20. Divided by 2 is going to give us negative 10 for our solution.